This is the 3D Viewmaster science fiction adventure U.F.O. U.F.O. Unidentified Flying Objects by Gerry Anderson. Viewmaster Reel 1. Picture 1. Liftoff at Cape Kennedy. Unidentified flying objects have for many years been a mystery. Sightings have been reported in all parts of the world. Yet, even now, 35 years after the first string of fast-moving lights were sighted in 1947, three questions remain unanswered. Who are they? What are they? Where do they come from? A small group of dedicated men and women working for SHADO, Supreme Headquarters Alien Defense Organization, are now searching for the answers. A huge NASA rocket was recently launched from Cape Kennedy in Florida. Its payload, a sophisticated and top-secret B-142 probe which, on orders from SHADO scientists, will leave its orbit around the moon and drag a UFO to its home planet far out in space. Picture 2. Commander Straker studies a B-142 model. At Straker, SHADO's leader sat quietly contemplating a model of the newly modified B-142. He, more than any other member of the organization, knew the risks involved in an alien encounter. But Straker knew, too, that Earth would never be truly safe until the UFOs were properly identified as either friend or foe. Ed Straker was as much a mystery as the sources he sought. He rarely left his office, and it was hidden away in what had once been a film studio. To an outsider, he was a high-powered film executive. Only a handful of people, privy to government secrets, realized that Ed Straker led a double life. A telephone bleeped at his elbow. A second spaceship was A-OK and ready for launch at the Cape. And this time, Straker himself would be at the controls, guiding the spaceship into Earth orbit and then to SHADO's huge moon-base complex. Picture 3. SHADO's self-supporting moon base. High above the moon, the lunar landing module separated from the command module and started its final approach. Ed Straker, though he had visited the moon several times, found himself thinking, as the first astronauts did, that words alone could not describe its beauty. He eased the lunar lander down to a perfect 4-point landing near the moon base airlock. Moments later, he was pronounced free of germs and radiation and permitted to continue on his way to the control sphere. Picture 4. A lunar reunion. The personnel assigned to SHADO's moon base were selected because they had what it takes to endure long periods away from Earth's warm-like environment. Paul Foster, an old friend of Straker's, now commanding Moonbase, met him at Mission Control. They shook hands warmly and went into the restricted plot room together. Lieutenant Gay Ellis left her place at one of the complicated-looking instrument panels to point out the B-142's precise lunar orbit, that being a key element in Project Discovery. Picture 5. The B-142 in lunar orbit. Gay had, in fact, figured out the correct orbit for the B-142, including the peculiar tilt which allowed it to accelerate quickly away from the moon's gravitational pull. Straker moved to a control sphere window. High above, the B-142 was in a parking orbit above the moon. He turned to Commander Foster and reminded him there was little time left for change. A UFO might arrive at any time. Speed is essential, he said matter-of-factly. Still, we must be perfect in our calculations. Straker moved deliberately across the room and sat down in front of the microphone. He was silent for a couple of minutes. Then he began to talk to his staff. Picture 6. Straker speaks to all base personnel. Attention all base personnel. This is Commander Straker speaking. As you know, a modified B-142 space probe has just been stationed in parking orbit above the moon. Commander Foster will shortly go up in a lunar module to fit specialized monitoring equipment into the probe. Phase 2 will attempt to choke your UFO into a position where the B-142's present flight pattern can be altered, enabling it to follow the alien back to its own planet. Picture 7. Foster's lunar module approaches the B-142. Phase 1 of Project Discovery got underway on schedule. Paul Foster and his pilot zoomed up to the B-142's parking orbit in one of the new lunar excursion modules. Their strange-looking craft is shown taking off from Shadow's moon base in the sketch at the right. As their fish-mouthed, bubble-topped ship pulled alongside the B-142, the pilot fired his retro rockets, slowing the mooncraft down to parking speed. Ed Straker and Lieutenant Ellis were at the same time monitoring the flight at control. When the module had gained a level orbit, Straker told Foster that all systems are go for a spacewalk. And still watching the screen, Ed noted that Paul was at that moment standing in the open hatch, ready to undertake what had to be the most dangerous assignment in Phase 1. Though spacewalks had become old hat, this one would be, as Foster said, something else. Viewmaster Reel 2. Picture 1. Foster leaves the lunar module. Paul floated effortlessly away from the module, feeling that same bed of air sensation first experienced by the Gemini 4's spacewalking astronaut. The pilot fed out the life-supporting umbilical cord, making sure that it did not twist or pull up tight at any time. Foster, meanwhile, carefully corrected his body position and, with an added boost from the two small rocket thrusters inside his backpack, hurtled headfirst toward the Symbay panel on the side of the deep space probe. Picture 2. Paul installs the electronometer. The B-142 seemed to become bigger and bigger as he crept closer to it. Paul, however, like Alice in Wonderland, felt smaller and smaller. He suddenly realized, absolutely alone. The stars seemed to be closing in on him. He shuddered and applied himself to the job. When he was within a few feet of the probe, Paul turned to retrieve the electronic sensing device that was trailing close behind him. Moving then to the Symbay panel, he found a detailed set of installation instructions printed on the door. "That'll help," he said. Picture 3. Foster returns to the module. Paul unclipped the panel with one hand, holding it with his knees when he had removed it from the Symbay. Then he grasped the electronic sensing device with both hands and eased it slowly, carefully into place. Straker, watching the entire operation on television at Mission Control, felt helpless. There was no way he could help Paul. Perspiration beaded on his brow. His eyes narrowed noticeably as the tiny figure on the television screen drew back from the orbiting space probe. Picture 4. Mission accomplished. The quiet tension at Mission Control, however, was soon relieved. Foster to control. The radio crackled slightly as Paul spoke. Do you read me? Roger, we read you, 5 by 5. Paul. Looks like you've got it, mate, buddy. Ah, Roger. Mission accomplished, Ed. Having a wonderful time. Wish you were here. This view is absolutely fantastic. Picture 5. Ed Straker explains Phase 2. Back at Moonbase, Commander Straker waited until Foster was safely back in the lunar module and then began to explain Phase 2 of Project Discovery. Congratulations, everyone. Phase 1 has been a complete success. Now to Phase 2. The problem, as I told you when last I spoke on the intercom, is to force a UFO into a flight path similar to that now being flown by our probe. The procedure involves great risk and will, therefore, be attempted by a lone interceptor. Commander Foster will be the pilot. If all our calculations are correct, we should be able to force an alien into the necessary orbit by detonating a high explosive missile near the UFO. For the time being, all we can do is wait, maintaining our yellow alert until such time as the UFO arrives. Picture 6. SID, shadows eye in the sky, hanging in space directly opposite the moon, but on the other side of the Earth, was the unmanned satellite shown here, the Space Intruder Detector, better known as SID, by comparing data from this source and from Shadow's Moonbase. Straker's whiz kids had established what amounted to a new early warning system nicknamed News. SID was, by design, a talking computer that analyzed information with fantastic speed and accuracy. Commander Straker walked about Mission Control, growing more nervous with each passing moment. Suddenly, there was an urgent buzzing sound on the base intercom, followed by SID's flat electronic voice, Red Alert, Red Alert. Picture 7. Saucer sighted, destination Moonbase. Lieutenant Ellis dashed into control and calmly settled into the tracking routine. Have the UFO on a positive track, she said. Red Alert confirmed. Speed? Speed 8,000. SID answered. Trajectory termination is Moonbase. Estimated time of arrival 15:33 hours. Ed Straker smiled. This is it, Gay. The one we've been waiting for. Get Bowl going right now. Gay flicked a switch on the command channel. Commander Foster, this is Moonbase Control. Prepare to scramble. We have an alien inbound. Over. Roger, Moonbase Control, Foster replied. We'll launch in 5 seconds. Over and out. Ed stood at the radar scanner, watching the pencil-thin band of light sweeping around the screen like the speeding second hand of a watch. There it is, he shouted. Viewmaster Reel 3. Picture 1. Interceptor speeds toward the UFO. Paul Foster cruising along in the interceptor, saw the same blip on his radar screen. The onboard computer began to click out minor changes in his course. The plan was simple. The inbound UFO would be allowed to continue on course to a point in space about 10,000 miles above Shadow's moon base. Paul would then be required to place a missile in its path, thereby forcing the alien into an orbit similar to the B-142's. The rocket thrusters aboard the probe would be fired automatically. Its homing device would, in effect, become a tow rope, tying the two together, some scientists believed, for a decade of space travel. The UFO's home planet might very well be thousands of light years away from Earth. Picture 2. Foster fires the missile. The firing sequence ticked down to 0. 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire! The nose-mounted missile was away. Paul's voice was heard back at Moonbase. Detonation in 20 seconds. Ed and Gay watched the 3 specks of light on the radar screen. The interceptor, the UFO and the missile. 10 seconds later, Paul pulled his ship up into an Immelmann, a half loop, and rolled that would put him well out of danger when the missile exploded. The sophisticated missile was guided to its target by laser beam, a new technique which guaranteed pinpoint accuracy. Shadow's armament experts promptly labeled it the smart bomb. Picture 3. Missile explodes near the UFO. Paul increased his rate of speed, trying to put as much distance between his interceptor and the explosion as was humanly possible. Though his eyes were shielded by a protective screen, the brilliant flash could be blinding for several seconds. Meanwhile, the countdown went on at mission control. 6 seconds, 5, 4, 3, detonation confirmed. A huge fireball appeared above the base. The moonscape brightened. Ed calmly asked for a situation report. UFO changing course, Gay told him. Will hit the B-142 orbit in exactly 60 seconds. Picture 4. The B-142 fires its engines. Ed noted then that the alien's radar track had begun to slowly curl into a loop. His plan was going to work. All systems are go for B-142 ignition, he said. Coming up in 10 seconds. He breathed a sigh of relief. Ignition confirmed, Gay said flatly. Positive tracking confirmed. UFO accelerating for home. Straker spoke into his microphone. Congratulations and thank you all. Project Discovery is a success. Picture 5. Paul returns to Moonbase. Paul was back at mission control in a matter of minutes. The elapsed time remains secret. The interceptor speed classified. Congratulations, Ed, and thanks for all the help. Foster grinned. Everything went perfectly. Straker was obviously in a jovial mood. Thanks to you, Paul. Well, it's over, for a while at least. All we can do now is sit back, relax and wait for the pictures. I hope they are worth looking at. When are the first ones due? Gay asked. 4 months to 1 year. Even the experts can't answer that one. You see, we don't know exactly where our UFO is heading. I know one thing for sure, it's going to seem like an eternity. Waiting is the hardest part of this job. Straker shook hands with Foster and Lieutenant Ellis and walked slowly to the airlock door. He had completed his tour of duty. The rocket ship was waiting to whisk him back to that small blue planet called Earth. Picture 6. Shadow's dragging station. Straker slipped back into his role as a film executive, though he kept in touch by hotline with Shadow's tracking station at Goldstone. He had no occasion to call Paul or Gay. There was nothing new to report. Then, 4 months to the day after he had left Moonbase, his video screen lit up. The probe's first television picture was coming in, and the image, though dark and dimly seen, was obviously an entirely new planet. Picture 7. A planet never seen before. Commander Straker spent the next several months reviewing data collected by the B-142. The danger to human life, it seemed, was minimal. The planet was not hostile. The pictures received later proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Ed's billion-dollar gamble had paid off. The giant talking computer, in fact, bubbled with excitement. The planet's inhabitants are human. Their life forms are much like those on Earth. Trees, flowers, insects, birds and mammals. I see cities, towering skyscrapers, highways and motor cars. They even have pollution. Everyone, Ed concluded, has a double, a twin, if not on Earth, somewhere in the limitless universe. We want to add new videos every day, so please subscribe to our channel.
And if you had fun, thumbs up.